Boston College lands their first two commitments out of the transfer portal. Good first steps, but they still have so much work to do.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off first purchase. Big episode today. We're going to talk about KP Price returning, how that was one of the only returners that we've heard about, and why this is still a big deal. We're going to look at some names that were on campus this weekend. I'll tell you some of the latest of names I've heard and give you the details on what they could bring if they commit to BC, and two commitments. So let's kick this off with the two commitments BC landed to kick off this transfer portal class. They have a class that they're going to have to build. It's going to have to be anywhere between 27 and 32 recruits, transfers. It is going to be absolutely enormous because BC, they cleared out almost the entire starting roster, from all their quarterbacks to most of their running backs to their entire offensive line. It's gone. So it had to start somewhere, and every little step should give us a better clue of what BC is doing moving forward. Now, the first name that came up, well, some of you are going to just jump on me for this. Yes, a long snapper from Holy Cross committed earlier this weekend. I'm not going to get into the deal of a Holy Cross long snapper. Fine. The first other transfer that committed to BC happened on Sunday morning, and that was Demetrius Ballard, a an edge rusher from Buffalo. He's a sophomore, played 1 year for Buffalo. He's 6'6", 250 pounds. So gone are the days of, the Nedowick Paulas and obviously I'd love to have Donovan Nazaraku, but not Donovan Nazaraku and some of these other defensive edge rushers, even like Favor Bate, I think is pretty small too, to getting a guy that's 6'6". So that part I'm very interested on. He had a 74.4 Pro Football Focus pass rush grade his first season. And I think this is the big key too. He was getting interest from Michigan State and Ole Miss. So there were other teams, Power 4 teams, that were looking at him and were saying, maybe this is the kind of guy that we want to get here. BC gets him in for an official visit this weekend. He commits. Now, I hear the gnashing of the teeth already. You have to take this one step at a time. This is one piece of a bigger picture. This is fine. I would not expect Demetrius Ballard to be a starting edge rusher that's going to play 50 snaps for you. That probably won't be his role unless he comes in and blows up. Because I think you should also hear that Alan True of 247 had a really interesting scouting report on him, and I'm pulling it up as we speak, that I thought really kind of spoke to what he could be. And that was, where is it? I got it right here. Sorry. He said, of course, it doesn't show up. Well, anyways, he said that he's a high upside player, and this is the kind of player that a lot of Power 4 programs are going to want, and that he could become something of a really high upside type of edge rusher that could be interesting for BC. So I thought that was something really interesting that he said about him. And I was trying to see if I can find it, but anyways, so that's one guy. The other commitment was a quarterback. And this is where a lot of folks are really, getting upset. And I get it. Like, this is not what you were expecting. You got your quarterback commitment. They're going to have multiple, right? Saginaw Valley quarterback. We've been talking about him for weeks. This is not like a new name that all of a sudden you guys are like, oh, who is this guy? Why is he, here? And this is Mason McKenzie. Mason McKenzie is a 6'1" or 6'0" quarterback, played D2 for Saginaw Valley. And, I think everyone who's listening to this was talking about It was talking about, Deuce Knight. So I got to tell you right now, I have no updates on Deuce Knight. I'm going to say that right now. The quarterback situation at BC is zip tight. They're not talking about anything. You've heard names buzzing around, guys like Devin Brown, and there was the kid from Mercer who had huge numbers last year that won the Jerry Rice Award. Bryce, was it Brandon Atkinson? I think his name is. These are names that are all kind of just buzzing around now. There was, a few others. You get Mason McKenzie. And interestingly enough, his stats, I'm going to say it right now, his stats don't jump off the page to me. They don't. He completed 58% of his passes. His film is a lot of like vertical stuff. It's not a lot of horizontal stuff. The part of the interview that I think a lot of people are worried about when you saw that he committed was when he said that it's his starting job to lose. And I want to say, I think that's the sales pitch. I would be surprised if that is like Bill he wouldn't tell Dylan Lonergan that he was going to start next year. You think he's going to tell a kid coming in from D2, you're going to be the starter? I have a hard time believing that. I think he's going to have a chance, but would he be the starter? No. So I don't think they're done at quarterback. That's going to be the next piece. Again, everything's a domino with this stuff. The next domino piece will be how we kind of evaluate this quarterback spot, because you'll have Femi Babalola, Anthony Colner, you'll have Mason McKenzie, and then somebody else. And who that other person is really will give you the faith that quarterback room is going in the right direction, or you have concerns about it. Obviously, BC must, and I'm not a scouting guy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a scouting guy. They must have watched film and saw something about this kid, because they have been on Mason McKenzie since mid-November, like since we've known about it, since he entered the portal. So this thing has been going on for a while. Again, he's D2. Again, like all that is true, and I can understand the worries. Like, you're hoping, and a lot of folks are hoping for that big splash portal guy, and if it's not Deuce Knight, you're going to get upset. And I get that. We've talked about Deuce a lot in the show, and things seem like they were going in the right direction from just the buzz that you've been hearing. But we're not in those rooms. We don't know. So we'll have to wait to see what happens there. That other quarterback position, this is it now. But honestly, like before this weekend, I think if you listen to my show, I've been talking about Mason McKenzie for a reason a lot. We knew he was the first one that got booked for an official visit that we knew about, that he's been talking about BC. This is something that's not a surprise. So I think this was just, the latest the commitment, and we'll have to see how he adjusts. I mean, BC does have a history of turning D2 players into stars. Remember, Paul Peterson came from, was it Snow University, I think it was, before he got here. So, there's a lot there. I would love to see him, what he can do with Bill O'Brien. We'll have to wait to see that piece of it. He's so mobile. I see a lot of folks mentioning, and there's a lot of scouting folks out there too. Like there's a Cooper Patania from 247 loves this kid. So this is other folks out there. Michigan was looking at him. Northwestern was looking at him. Michigan, like the University of Michigan. So again, if this is part of a bigger piece, that's fine. If this is your answer, I'm gonna be a little worried about it until I can see it. Again, the proof will be pushed for a little bit, right? That's my motto. Prove it. So those are the two. In a moment, who are some other names that were on campus that we watched this weekend or heard about? I've got a few I want to make sure that we get into, and I'll talk all about that in just a moment. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. It's so easy to use from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. That's become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during happy hour brings something new with boosts, bonuses, and surprises. I love this. I use it for football too. Football always has boosts and bonuses on there. It's always a great time. So before off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast of the day. If you haven't already, go check out your new Everydayer, our new Everydayer Club. Get access to ad-free audio for Locked On Boston College, available on all platforms, and invite to our members-only Discord. And if you become part of our all-access tier, and a few of you already continued doing this weekend, I hope you guys join as well. If you're sitting there in the chat right now and you go, why isn't AJ talking to me? Well, on our chat, we have a program on All Access where you can talk directly to me. You can text me. I'm on this text app constantly talking to BC fans. So if you've been saying, I want to talk to AJ about more BC stuff, you can do it there. Plus more bonus Boston College content. I did a whole episode or a whole 10-minute mini episode just for All Access members this morning, just on the quarterback situation and things that I had heard this morning. You want to make sure that you get in on that and sign up today. The details are in the show notes. It's at lockedonpodcast.com/everyday. You can get all your details there. All right, Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. And we're talking about players that have been on campus. We have 2 commitments. We've got 28 more to go. And it's honestly for BC been a little bit of the drips and drabs. You're hearing little things here and there of guys that have been on campus. You don't get, the full visitor list. It's a quieter situation, and I'm sure that's by design by Boston College. There's no reason to go out there and get all this info out there. It only makes people bet. You're only negotiating against yourself. But we did get some new names, and one of the positions BC has to hammer hard is linebacker, because they have a bunch of guys that haven't really played. You have Kamori Dixon, Paloe Fahawa, Griffin Collins, but you could probably count the amount of snaps on there, on a couple of hands with those guys. They haven't played significant snaps. And yes, I know they played more than 100 combined. I'm joking. But the first name of a linebacker that we heard about was on campus this weekend, and that's Anthony Palano. Anthony Palano is a linebacker at Washington State, and he was on campus this weekend because you caught him on Instagram putting it up. It was kind of easy to find. He played quite a bit for Washington State this past year. You need an experienced linebacker. This is one guy that looks the part. This looks like a guy that, played. You can argue a Power 4 schedule, Power 5, because that's kind of technically what Washington State is. Hey, it's not Merrimack, right? So you have a guy like that. That was one player that we heard about this weekend that was at BC. Another player that we had, I think you saw a couple kids from Maryland that were on campus. I'll get more onto that in a minute. You had a running back, and I just lost his name. I'm having a bear of a time with this right now. Sometimes AJ is not on his game, but it's been a long weekend, folks. Oh, the other one I wanted to talk to you about, sorry, is Javarius Green. Javarius Green is a wide receiver from UNC who is a blazing speedster who ran, what was it, a 6'9", 60-yard dash, crazy speed, which, Bill O'Brien hasn't technically used the most of in years past, because we saw that with Jaden McGowan. We saw that with Rocket Wilkins this past year. But, he's a North Carolina kid. This is another guy that I think BC could be really connected with. We've also seen names come off the board. I mentioned on yesterday's special edition show that Wisdom Sims from NC Central was going to be taking a visit, but he took a visit to Purdue first, and he went there. So for all you folks that didn't want an FCS player, you didn't get one. The other interesting things in terms of recruits, I think you're starting to see a lot of names that you were hoping for come off the board. That maybe maybe that you were hoping that like you'd see a connection to BC, but just the connection wasn't there. A lot of the UConn kids, like Ben Skamarski or whatever his name is, the offensive tackle, he's gone. He went to Michigan State. There's another one taking an official visit. So like all those guys, I don't see BC doing much there. But I think as well, you should just as a note, there's going to be, I believe, quite a few names that should come out tomorrow. The school itself is going to announce some names, so we should hopefully know more of the commitments that are coming tomorrow. So Javarius Green, also, by the way, is he 6 feet? I think he's 6 feet wide receiver. Had 15 catches for like 150 yards this past year. So it's not like he hasn't played, but he's also a younger player. You'd have him for control for a couple of years. Additionally, some of the players that are left, we got. I don't think I've been live since we've heard some of the new names. Jalen Blackwell was one of the last names that entered the portal. He was a guy that got hurt 2 years ago, got hurt again, like just could not just snake bitten with injuries. I felt bad for the poor guy. I believe he got hurt like at the second practice of spring this year, like really badly. And he'll be looking for a new place. Datrell Jones, the running back for BC, just committed to Holy Cross. Cedric Lott, and this is not a knock on Cedric Lott, has been posting his offers. This is the wide receiver, a 6'5" wide receiver that entered the portal this year. I've never heard of the two schools he's got visit offers to, which was like Midwest University and Pittsburgh State, which I guess would be in Pittsburgh. But other than that, I haven't heard. Additionally, Turbo is going to Indiana. I think that was the worst kept secret in the world. You can read between the lines. I mean, he seemed like that was pretty much where he was going to be going right away. And you had Reed Harris is now connected to Arizona State, and Dylan Larnigan is connected to Rutgers, who BC plays this year. Can you imagine that? Like we all this fall, well, later in the fall, we heard the buzz that FSU might get a waiver for Tommy Castellanos to come back, and he's off to the NFL. And that was going to be the big matchup with his old coach. No one predicted the possibility of Dylan Larnigan playing against Bill O'Brien. That's crazy. Like, there's a possibility because Rutgers plays BC next year. There's a possibility that BC could play Dylan Larnigan next year. That'll be fun if that's the case. So I put up, on Eagle Insider, I put up a list of what did each position. Other than special teams, which they've got like 2 kickers, 2 punters, and 2 long snappers now. They're basically set there. Every other position, they have multiple needs. Like offensive line, they need like 4 or 5. Linebackers, like 3. If you want to get the whole scoop on that, it's up on the site. That's scary. Like, I want to believe that they're going to be able to fix all of this, but I'm also a little nervous that this is going to be tough. But there's a ton of names out in the portal. There's more coming out. And I think we're going to have to wait to see. There's so many needs. It's like when one thing happens, it's like a needle in a haystack, like kind of thing where it's like, well, they got a quarterback now, but do they have an offensive line to protect him? Well, they have an offensive, they've got a couple offensive line, but they have a tackle. Do they have a running back? Like, yeah, it's like one thing after another. For the next week or two, we're going to just be telling you names and popping out names. And tomorrow's show, I'm going to be doing a whole lot of that. Until we get a bigger picture, it's really hard to judge what they're doing because I still think like the guys that have committed, the one thing that's in common and one thing I talked about all last week are neither of them are connected to Kenyatta Watson. Like Mason McKenzie is a quarterback from, Michigan, and Demetrius Ballard, I think he's North Carolina. But no, actually, I think he's Michigan too. So I don't think they've had anybody that has been connected to him. So I'm wondering, he's from Pennsylvania. Sorry. I've been wondering, like, are the guys that we've considered, Kenyatta guys? Cause I haven't seen them really. Many of the guys that have been on campus connected to Kenyatta yet. Evan Dickens was one, and there's a few others that are Georgia guys. But the ones that haven't committed, Are they going to be, is there like an unwritten thing with BC and them that they need to be quiet about all this stuff? Because it seems like that's the case. Like, if Kenyatta is coming in to bring in all these names because he has good connections, why haven't we heard about many of them yet? So I'm thinking that if they are there, they're the ones that we haven't heard about. Because remember, I heard that this weekend they were going to have 25 plus visitors. I have not gotten the number of visitors I've seen is not even half of that. The amount of commitments that they have is not, it doesn't match up with that piece. So at least either I'm completely wrong on that, and I doubt that's the case, or there's something else that's going to happen with that piece. So we'll have to wait to see what happens. But those are a bunch of other names that have been connected to BC. Again, tomorrow we're expecting a bunch to commit. That's what I've heard. And we'll have, a lot to talk about. And notice on my show, I'm not talking about basketball at all. I have nothing to say about them. There's my comment on BC basketball. In a moment, let's go talk about KP Price, the one big good news piece of this weekend, and I'll explain why it's a big deal in just a moment. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and price jumping out at checkpoint. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I opened the Game Time app to look up the college football team games for Boston College and was surprised how fast it was easy to find great seats. This past season, you could get tickets really cheap. I'm sure you know why. I love being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I knew exactly what I was getting. And knowing the prices all and fees all up front made the whole process stress-free. Getting them delivered to my phone from my wallet was so easy. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who made Locked On Boston College part of your daily routine and part of, if you're listening to us for your first listen, thank you so much. If you have not done so already, please smash that like button on this episode. It does help the algorithm, and subscribe. We're getting so close to 3,000. I would love to bypass the BC official account. I could do it. I think I could. So help us get there. Hit that subscribe button so we can become the biggest Boston College podcast site. Boston College site out there. I'm already the biggest Boston College podcast. I'll be the biggest Boston College YouTube page ever. So, anyways, KP Price. KP Price is back, and he announced it on Saturday in a move that was kind of stunning because I had just talked about it before. That Kevin Stone of Rivals, he had reported that he had heard KP was leaving. He heard Amari Jackson was leaving too, which I was able to confirm through my sources at 247 who have complete access to the portal. So I know Amari Jackson is leaving. KP, on the other hand, announced that he is returning, which is not what we had heard. This is huge for BC because you go to the offense and defensive side of the ball. The amount of impact players that were returning or veterans that you could rely on, you could count on one hand. And even then, it's like, okay, so it's like Michael Krauts, who's fine, but, a younger player. Kalen Chazinski's a freshman. And Jaden Skeet, who's been hurt a bunch. And then some other players that are more rollish type of players. To get KP Price back, this is without a doubt, your leader on defense. A guy that last year played strong safety, moved over to linebacker, led the team in tackles, did everything that you asked of him. The fact that he's coming back, he could have easily gone in the portal and probably got himself an even bigger payday, is a testament to his character and a testament to his connection to Boston College. So if you're looking for a guy to root for next year, you look for number 2, because this guy is epitomized. And look, I don't hate on the guys that went out there and made another choice. That's up to them. And if they're getting a huge payday, all the power to them. Hopefully they can, save that, get themselves a down payment on a house. If the NFL doesn't work out for them, go for it. But for KP Price to come back, that speaks volumes. now you have something on defense to build around, and you need a lot to build around him, because the last thing that we need for KP Price to do is to come back here and have a really poor roster built around him. He needs talent with him. So build some talent around KP Price. Get him other guys out there. I'm sure Carter Davis will probably be the other safety. You're going to probably see an Ashton Cunningham at cornerback and a TJ Green out there, but you need pass rushers and linebackers. There's a lot of needs around this kid, but it's really cool to see him back. This was one big good win for BC, and honestly one I was really surprised about, because I just assumed based off the news I'd heard that he was going to be out the door. So that was the one last big news piece of the weekend. If you have not done so already, please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow for another episode. It was honestly, I have to say, before I head out, it was quieter for a team that needs to basically nuke their entire roster and flip it. It was honestly a quieter Sunday episode than I expected. I expected to have more news for you guys. We talked about Mason McKenzie a little bit, and maybe I could have talked a little bit more about him, but I just, when you have two guys that are just like shot in the dark, little, smaller things, and we've talked about Mason McKenzie already, I was expecting more. So hopefully tomorrow will be the floodgates. I'm waiting for the floodgates to open. There's got to be a day where we're going to get like 6 commitments. It's going to be coming, because basically BC, I think it was, I put it up, I think it's January 12th is the start of classes. They got to get kids in 8 days. They got to get 25 to 30 more guys in 8 days. I'm sure the people in Chestnut Hill are not sleeping much right now. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow for another episode. Thank you all for listening. Become part of our Adair Club if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.